Welcome to the channel. I'm Lisa, and I'm here to help you improve your English language communication skills. This can be very challenging for students. How do we have better conversations? How can we get better at conversing? Well, we're going to talk about that today. That is our topic, improving our conversations. How? So there are a few things that we can do. But I always tell students to remember that speaking in English is like playing a game. But what game? Specifically, I like to use this game, tennis. Speaking English is like playing tennis. Why do I choose the game of tennis and not football or hockey? Because there is a back and forth with tennis. You hit the ball, and then someone hits the ball back. You hit the ball, and then someone hits the ball back. So there's a back and forth. So you have to think about conversation this way. So you have a responsibility when you are in a conversation. You have the responsibility as the sender. That's when you are speaking, and the receiver when the other person is talking to you. So I did a video about this. I'll put the links in the description about being the sender and the receiver. Now, how can you improve conversation? So if you understand that conversation is like a game of tennis, you can improve your conversation. You need to find out why you're having a difficult time with conversations. I'm talking more at an intermediate level. If you are a beginner, it's pretty obvious why, but I'm talking a little bit more as you start to approach that intermediate level. So let's talk about the first thing. It could be your vocabulary. You don't have enough vocabulary to speak English, but it's not that simple. Is it just, I'll give you a dictionary, learn more words, and then your conversation level will improve? No. You have to make sure that you're learning your functional English. I also did a video on this. And what I mean is, what words do you need to get you through your day-to-day situations? So if you're a nurse, for example, you're going to have a different functional English than somebody who is a mechanic who works on cars. Or if you have children and you talk to teachers a lot, you go to schools a lot, that's a different functional English that you'll need to talk to a teacher, as opposed to you work in a coffee shop and you talk to a lot of customers. You'll need different English words to help you through those situations. So make sure you understand what vocabulary words you need to improve. If you're going to return an item, maybe a pair of shoes didn't fit right, you have to go back to the store and talk to the cashier or customer service. Do you have the functional English to successfully ask and answer questions as to why you are returning those shoes? You need specific words. It doesn't fit, it's the wrong size, wrong color, wrong brand, it's damaged, something. You have to make sure you have the right words. So it could be vocabulary. The second reason is it could be your speed. Maybe not your speed necessarily, but when I mean speed, I mean how fast you talk. So you possibly could be speaking English too fast or too slow, or the other person could be speaking the language too fast or too slow. So let's say that the problem is you just say, people speak English too fast for me. I don't understand. What can you do? Listen more. You need to listen more. That's one of the first things you can do. And how do you listen more? Listen to more native conversations, TV, news, listen, listen, listen. Eventually, it won't seem that they're talking too fast. The other thing you can do is you have to use techniques to get the other person to slow down. So in your mind, you are saying they're talking too fast. The other person doesn't know that. So you have to tell them that. You can't be embarrassed. You have to say, excuse me, can you speak a little slower for me? I'm not getting all of the words. They're happy to. Why are they happy to slow down? They want you to understand. So don't be afraid to tell them to speak a little slower if speed is the problem. And you might even ask them that before the conversation gets deep. Just tell them, I'm still learning English. Please speak slow. So it could be speed that is the issue. The other issue could be you do well with conversations one-on-one, but in groups, you have a very difficult time. Why is that? It's because you are listening to multiple tracks or multiple speaking, sometimes people speaking at the same time. The topics change frequently with multiple speakers. So if you have a group of friends going out for dinner and you are there, maybe it's a work meeting, a business meeting, and there's 6 people, then one person is going to say something, somebody else will say something, somebody will respond to what somebody else says, a question is asked, they change the topic. And so you feel like you're not understanding everything, you're not catching everything. What can you do for that? Well, first of all, really try to improve the one-on-one conversation, get better at one-on-one, one person to one person. That will really help you even in groups. Just putting yourself in that situation more. And we come to the point of getting a teacher, getting someone to converse with. There's no shortcut for this. If you don't have the money to pay for a private teacher or to pay a company where you can have access to native teachers, at some point in your training, you are going to need a teacher. So one of the companies that I'll highlight today is italki. They have a special this July. I just happened to get emailed. It's their 14th anniversary. So I do have a couple links that you can use if you're interested in this company. It's italki. When it comes to getting someone to talk to, if you can't pay for a teacher, you're not ready to start with a company, see if you can get someone to converse with. They don't have to be a native speaker as long as they're willing to talk to you. Often students will tell me, my husband is a native speaker, my wife, my children speak really well. Why is it that you can't really rely on that? They don't have the patience to teach you. It's not their job to teach you. And sometimes as a native, they don't even understand how to explain certain things as to why we pronounce something a certain way, why something is in a particular tense. So get a teacher. So that will help you because they're paid to talk to you. They want to talk to you and they want to help you improve, and they can really help you with this. So that is another thing that will help with conversation. So I want to get back to this idea of playing tennis. So we had this image up before of playing tennis. And one thing you can do is mirror the other person. This will help with conversation. What is mirror the other person? What I mean is listen carefully. If they ask you a question, you can ask the same question back to them. Of course, it has to make sense that you're asking that question, so you do have to listen. I'll give you an example. You see your neighbor, you say, hi, how are you? How is everything? And then your conversation gets uncomfortable. You don't know what to say. And often students say they don't get past the first minute in conversations and they're struggling. You can do 2 things. The first thing is you can mirror them. So of course, if they ask how you are, ask them back, how are you today? Don't just say, I'm fine, and then nothing. Hit the ball back. You have a responsibility to hit the ball or say something back. If they ask you, how are your kids today? Oh, my kids are great. Ask them the same question back if they have kids, right? It has to make sense. So if they have kids, how are your kids doing today? How are they doing with the distant learning? How is their summer? They answer. You can't rely on the other person to always keep hitting you the ball, asking you questions. So you have to learn to hit the ball back. The second thing you can do is think about the questions you can ask in a particular circumstance. So if you see your neighbor around the same time every day, or you have a meeting with your kid's teacher, or you're going to the doctor's office, have those questions ready for a conversation. Have things you are going to talk about beforehand. Prepare. Write it down. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Write it down. I know I've done that in the past as a native speaker. If I have an important call or someone I haven't spoken to in a long time and I want to remember things I want to ask them, I write it down. Just make myself a little note. So you can do that to help you become a better conversationalist. So let's look at some other issues that could be the problem with conversation. One of the other things with conversation could also be culture. So what do I mean by culture? So I'll use the US American culture as an example. We tend to be very informal very quickly. So some students are a little nervous when they're asked certain questions. It's almost as if you're being interviewed. It's very common to quickly become informal. So a conversation might go like this. If you're meeting someone for the first time, they might ask, what's your name? Where are you originally from? So you should be ready to answer that. What's your native language? I notice your accent. What do you do for work? Do you have kids? Are you married? This is all in the very first initial conversation. And there are some students that say, we don't ask if you're married in my culture. That's offensive. So you have to think about, are you having issue with the things that are culturally acceptable to talk about? So those are different things to think about if you're having difficulty in conversation. But it is not enough to say, Lisa, I don't do well with conversation. Why? You have to know what is it that's giving you the problem. There's another indication, or there is another thing to look for in conversation as to what you're having trouble with. And that is how often you ask the other person to repeat and how often they ask you to repeat. So if you find in conversation, they're saying, what? Excuse me, what? There's something that you are saying or doing that is causing the conversation not to move forward. If you find you are the one always asking, excuse me, I don't understand, then again, that's something that you might have to improve. Maybe it's your listening. Maybe they're talking too fast. But you always should be in your mind making notes as to why a conversation didn't go well or why a conversation went well, so that you do have a responsibility to help you improve your conversation. So those are some things about conversation. Of course, this is a topic that is always ongoing and we'll continue to talk about it. So if you have any ideas for videos or things that you want me to talk more about, you can just put a comment in for me. But I'll see you in the next video.